The world is not physical, it is not material. It is material only in the colloquial sense, in the sense that there are colloquially material things around us, but they are not quantitative in essence. They must be qualitative in essence, because qualities is all we really know by direct acquaintance. Qualities are nature's given, they precede theory. Qualities are what we have before we begin abstracting and theorizing. So what is this qualitative world? How can we make sense of the fact that we seem to inhabit the same world?
Out of the way, those your ass!
Good one.
Does not mean are outside yours. Your neighbor are outside. We are pilots flying by instruments throughout life.
Come on, sunshine, walk it off. Oh, crap, sorry. You're always in shore. Come on, get off your ass. Enemy spotted! Smoke out!
Physical in the colloquial sense.
Target my mark!
Why don't I know what
Eyes on target!
Why can't I be much more direct communication?
Might wanna run!
How can that be? And what is the relationship between our bodies and our minds? Because we are both there is
Incoming fire!
Identity or DID, we know that the patterns of their brain activity differs from subject. So DID can even diagnose that it can literally render what is right in front of your eyes. As a matter matter of fact, this is exactly the result of research done in Germany in 2015. A woman suffering from a severe form of DRD had multiple sub-personalities.
Let's get him!
We are called alters. Each alter of a person is a sort of a sub-personality with its own memories, its own personality traits, identifies with different other alters, go by different names. And in people, that's usually a reaction to trauma.
Enemy mark!
Fragments itself into multiple disjoint centers. And this woman has multiple alters, some of which claim to be blind, even though the woman herself was not blind. Just fine, the cortex, they were in fine order. So neuroscientists had this great idea to instrument this woman with an EEG cap to measure brain activity. And lo and behold, when a blind alter had executive control of the body, brain activity in the visual cortex at the back of the brain disappeared, even though the woman's eyes were open and she was perfectly sight capable. Now, this is not something one can fake. And when a sighted alter or the host personality was back in executive control, brain activity in the visual cortex came back to normal. So we know dissociation happens. We know that dissociation fragments one mind into multiple disjoint centers of awareness that often don't even know about each other's existence. And we know that it can literally make you blind to what is right in front of your eyes, let alone to somebody else's thoughts, let alone to what's happening in China or in the galaxy of Andromeda. So under analytic idealism, the mind of nature, a subjective field or a field of subjectivity that spans all of the universe, undergoes something akin to dissociation. And we are the alters of nature. We are the alters of the universe. Every living being is an alter of the universe. And that's why we can't read each other's thoughts. That's why we don't know what's happening in the galaxy of Andromeda. Because we are blinded by dissociation, just like that woman in Germany was blinded by dissociation to what was right in front of her open eyes. Now, as I mentioned before, we can even diagnose dissociation under functional brain scan. This was research done by Jolanda Schlumpf in the Netherlands in 2014. There is something dissociative processes look like. They have an extrinsic appearance. They look like something identifiable. So my postulate is that what we call biology, what we call life, metabolism, is what dissociation in the mind of nature looks like. We don't need a brain scanner to see the dissociative processes in the mind of nature because we are in the mind of nature. We don't need to see through the skull. We are inserted. We are part of the mind of nature. So if you look around to identify an image on the dashboard that correlates with dissociation, in other words, that is what dissociation looks like when represented on our dashboard, that image is life. That's what life is. Life is what a dissociative process in the field of subjectivity that underlies all nature looks like. And that is why your brain activity correlates with your inner experience. Because brain activity is what your inner experience looks like when observed from across a dissociative boundary. Brain activity is the image of the phenomenon, not the generator of the phenomenon. And of course, the image correlates very well, most of the times, with the phenomenon it is an image of. And that's why brain activity and inner experience go hand in hand most of the time. Because what the phenomenon looks like correlates with the phenomenon. There's no surprise here. Now notice that in the case of an
Out of the way, else your ass is done.
the image doesn't need to be complete. In other words, the image
Hostile!
of the phenomenon does not need to tell you everything there is to tell about it. But the cause does. The phenomenon has a certain cause, then you should be able to construe, derive activity is the cause of experience, not if you can't trace back to brain activity. So if brain activity is what experience from a clock boundary, then that does not need to be controlled. It does not need to have
Rolling spike!
And this is trivial. If you look at the person, you see a body. The body is just the person. So he doesn't become the other exactly what's going on in the background. Why not? If you're looking at the person head on.
Enemy mark!
Shit!
I would go further, and I would say that brain activity when represented on the dashboard, it is also a representation of the dissociative process. Not only the contents within the dissociation. When you have an outer, that outer has certain memories. And as a process, you should also be that. But it is something that is associated with not only the content of the dissociation. And that should be part of what we call brain activity. Some brain activity must be what the dissociative process itself looks like. Any psychedelic and the choking gate and G-forces with proper function, and so on and so forth. If by impairing brain activity, we are in fact impairing the dissociation, the dissociative boundary, rendering the dissociative boundary more porous, more permeable, then you would expect there to be more experiences. Because less dissociation means, by definition, more experience. When that woman in Germany was
Ain't coming first! You're kinda dead!
more experiences, which correlate with the reduction of dissociation. So I would submit to you that most of the time, experience correlates with brain activity because one is the other. But because brain activity is what experience is. So more experience, more brain activity. Some elements of brain activity and I submit to you that's what happens in the psychedelic experience, under the force of consciousness, under anoxia or reduction of blood flow or oxygenation to the brain. That's what happens when people hyperventilate. There are even therapies that use hyperventilation.
Watch me work! You might learn something!
The amount of oxygen in the blood too much turns the blood alkaline, which is harmful to brain cells. So the brain capillaries, they shrink, and you get less blood flow to the brain, and that's why you can pass if you hyperventilate. And people have learned, therapists have learned, that has curative effects.
Watch it! Incoming smoke!
Life is of our how sure can I be of this? If I speak to you from a conceptual, analytic perspective, one can never be sure of anything except that there is experience. That's nature's sole given. Everything else entails some form of theorizing. But I submit to you that the important question is not what we can know for sure. The important question is, what do we have reasons to take seriously as a hypothesis? Let me give you an example. I do not know for sure that the spaghetti monster operating on island and moving the planets around the sun using these appendages. Because we just don't have good reasons to believe that. In the same spirit, good reasons to take materialism. And I do think we have very good reasons to take idealism seriously. It's not
Lovely. That'll work.
we are running around
Trade weapons.
going around the universe very much. We have had a mission for about 30 to 50,000 years. We come. The only game we can play is what is the best hypothesis we have. Disregarded
Eyes on target.
amongst those variations of idealism, and particularly the analytic idealism, is the hypothesis that is most plausible,
I got this.
and I'm sure about it.
Thrown away.
Those analytic idealism is good, because it's the best hypothesis I can come up with when I contemplate all the evidence and apply it really. People who think idealism is implausible
Target my mark.
operate
Enemy mark. Surprise.
mentation must be a sort of a byproduct or an epiphenomenal or a consequence of physical processes, they say. And this may sound very intuitive to anybody who is making hidden physicalist assumptions, because you see, under idealism, the needle that pricks your arm is not a physical event. It is a mental event that is represented on the dashboard as a needle pricking your arm. That glass of alcohol is what a certain transpersonal mental process out there looks like. And when you ingest that alcohol, you're bringing an outside mental process inside the boundaries of your altar. And mental processes have effects on one another. That's trivial. If you think bad thoughts, you have bad emotions. If you're worried, your thoughts will be influenced by your emotions. Thoughts and emotions influence one another all the time. For exactly the same reason, that glass of alcohol influences your experience. And that needle pricking your arm leads to an experience. But the needle is not essentially physical. The alcohol is not essentially physical, because nothing is essentially physical under analytic idealism. The needle and the alcohol or the pill that you ingest, those two are representations on our dashboard of dials of mental processes out there. And mental processes do have causal effects on one another. Another criticism that I often hear is it has to do with the hypothesis of life being what alters look like, dissociative alters. And people will say, I can shake hands with somebody else, I can hit someone else over the head, But one outer cannot shake hands with another outer. One outer cannot fit
All right, let's go!
over the head. Well, things are actually true. Let's look at the research. To make a proper comparison, all inside the mud, and there's nothing outside that mud. To compare it properly, the patient with VID, we have to compare it to what happens in the mind of the patient with VID. Patient with VID. The report will be more happy, but more
Throwing smoke!
in which the different houses participate in the same dream. And they could over the head. And there are dream results exactly that.
One for the album.
And after the dream, the whole process itself, and called stability.
This will do.
From the outer stone perspective.
Target my mark.
42 shaking hands and clubbing one another over the head. So the analogy with dissociation survives.
Cease fire!
Enemy spotted.
When we are out shaking hands, talking, and clubbing each other over the head.
Fire in the hole! That was a little too close.
I'll call it universal of universal. What is this universal? Perspective. All that we need to know about is that it is experiential in nature. In other words, that it entails subjectivity. That it is qualitative as opposed to purely quantitative. Quantitative are descriptions of it, but in and of itself, it is qualitative, experiential, subjective, from your own perspective, even though it is objective from our perspective, in the same sense that it is objective from your perspective, it is subjective from their own perspective. All the need for universal consciousness is subjective. It's entails what philosophers today call core subjectivity. What is core subjectivity? Imagine that you are perfect there is perfectly balanced, perfectly flat, and you're floating in water, and there is interior touching you. In other words, you have no perspective. Now imagine further that you become uneasy for a moment while you enter the sedation. You don't no longer remember even where you were born. You don't know what to do you forget everything. Now for a moment, when you forget everything and you could see
Incoming smoke!
only one thing you do. Which is pure subjectivity. That no memories, no perception, no discernible particular experience, just a potentiality for it. And
Eyes on target. Time to kick some ass.
highness would be better. Pure that is that will remain and are completely unused to the perfect sensible relationship lost the soul. It is subjectivity without a story of
Enemy spotted.
human can be forgotten. consists
Eyes on target.
of fear or subjectivity. That's all that would be in the mind of the fear or subjectivity. Outside the experiences of living life. To the sky, to the cosmos is dynamic. There are stars going supernova, there are black holes, there are galaxies colliding, stuff is happening. Stars are burning, planets are moving around their orbits, volcanoes are erupting in moons. A lot of stuff is happening.
All right, let's go!
Of the mental activity of the universal consciousness.
Incoming smoke!
The representation is dynamic, then there is a universal consciousness. Next, subjectivity, which is excitation of
Get your hands off it, I called you.
There is no time. And if you pluck it, you excited, it makes experiences are the sounds, of course, objective. But notice that to the sounds that you guitar string when you pluck it, other than the string itself. The only thing that exists is the string. Whether it's at rest or being excited, there is only the string. And there is only core subjectivity, even if there are experiences, because experiences are excitation. The core subjectivity is just the universal consciousness is. And when you write that the only experiences of universal consciousness feel like we are dissociated from it. All we can access are the representations, the extrinsic appearances of those experiences as represented on our dashboard. And we call them galaxies and supernovas and black holes and quasars and whatnot, planets and moons and volcanoes and rocks. But how they feel from
One for the album.
we cannot know.
Out of ammo!
Is the following. There may be a sensation of universal consciousness with God. It's difficult to say whether I think that I don't know what most people mean by God. There are probably so whatever I say, you make it sense. So I limit myself to stating that I can't say with some confidence. Self-aware. Metacognition. Not only do we
easy!
We explicitly recognize ourselves as a subjective entity that has experience. And that's why we say, I have hunger, or I feel, as opposed to I am hunger, and I am.
Target my mark!
This distinction between our experiences and our this distinction
Afraid of a girl, are you?
Excited and charged and repressed is what metacognition allows us to make. It allows us to think about our thoughts, to ponder our emotions. And this metacognition as a mental function has evolved a very great for the 4 billion years of evolution on a planetary ecosystem. The universal
have this.
did not have to undergo evolution within a planetary ecosystem. Never has had environmental challenges and
Target my mark!
Got one! Damn it!
One for the album!
My cat has less of it. The amoeba swimming on my garden pond probably has none of it. All 3 of them, I, my cat, and the amoeba, authors of the universe. I think we are all 3 double lines, which is sort of a giveaway of a definitive process in the mind of nature. But not all 3 are metaphysical. Only the most important one seems to be
Eyes on top!
so mass recognition seems to be as we conquer the
Incoming smoke!
from the beginning.
Good, fine.
And you know, some scientists would say, you know what, Monaro and Impreza use their own conical shape hybrid to merge particles in the box of their garbage. But I think we could all agree that lower life forms, not in an ethical sense, lower than in evolution, exhibit a lot less change than methods of cognition than higher, more evolved life forms. Does not seem to be there from the beginning. It's not there in the it's not there in the straw. It's not there in the fish. At least we have it's nature there in the fish. It's certainly there in humans. I think we can say with some point that our highly evolved life form is not intelligent. If you apply the word God to it, then you have a God that is a natural God. A God that has functionality. It does what it does because it is what it is. Not because it has a plan, not because it has thought things through. Its action starts emerging. These actions are the properties of these processes. They are not premeditated design and cognitive God that allows for survival in a planetary ecosystem
Flame out!
or a God that has a level of intelligence that is completely beyond us, so we cannot understand the reason for all this suffering. But regardless of these value judgments, I don't think we have enough objective, clear-minded, empirical reason to postulate higher level mental functions as inherent characteristics of the universal consciousness as a whole. I think higher level mental functions are the characteristics of highly evolved life forms, thanks to the pressures of fitness and survival in a planetary ecosystem. All right, so if the cosmos, as we see through our telescopes, through the Hubble, through the James Webb telescope, if this physical cosmos is a representation of the mind of nature, its mental processes, how do we reconcile it with what we know about the cosmos? Like, say, the theory of the Big Bang, which is an event that supposedly happened 3.8 billion years ago and set out the universe in a continuous expansion and complexification thanks to quantum fluctuations and other processes we know about nature. How can we accommodate the Big Bang into this analytic idealist perspective? Let me start by saying that I personally do take the Big Bang very seriously. There are other cosmological hypotheses out there that are less empirically substantiated than the Big Bang. And in recent times with the James Webb, there are some people even making noise that the James Webb telescope has shown that the Big Bang is not true. I think that is nonsense. I think the pictures show no such a thing. They only show that our particular cosmological models about the early evolution of the universe need some work, need some fine-tuning. But the evidence suggesting that the universe has expanded from a singularity is overwhelming. The cosmic radiation background even shows where the quantum fluctuations happen that gave birth to stars, planets, galaxies, galaxy clusters, and so on and so forth, out of the initially uniform field of energy that arose immediately after the Big Bang. So I take the Big Bang very seriously. And some people might then say, well, if you take it seriously, Bernardo, then there was a universe prior to the rise of life. Life arose on this planet, the Earth, about 4 billion years ago. We used to think 3.5. I think the latest is 4 billion years ago. And the Big Bang happened 13.8 billion years ago. So what was the universe before life? Because according to analytic idealism, the physical universe is a cognitive representation of living beings. If there is no living being to cognitively represent the universe, then there is no physical universe, because physicality is the representation. Physicality is the dashboard. If there is no airplane flying around the sky, there is no dashboard. But that doesn't mean that there is no sky. The sky exists whether there is an airplane measuring it and showing the measurements on the dashboard or not. So the universe existence, whatever it is in and of itself, has existed before life, before an organism arose that would represent it on its own dashboard. But the universe is not physical. Physicality is a representation of the universe. So before life, there was no such representation, but the universe was there. Whatever transpersonal mental processes corresponded to the universe before the rise of life, they were there. There was mentation in the mind of nature before life arose. And we model that early mentation along the lines of what we call Big Bang theory. So the Big Bang is something roughly similar to a rapid expansion.
Good to be back.
Not quite accurate, but something like that happened in the mind of nature. We can get another people where I might tell you that this is just a convenient theory, but I'm not going there in this course. As far as convenient theory goes, there was mentation in the mind of nature before life arose. And if there would have been life looking at it back then, that life would have seen it as something more or less like an experiment. There was no life. Nobody saw it that way.
Off your ass!
So you ask what happened before the Big Bang. Because you have to think in terms of time.
Get your hands off what I call
before the Big Bang, but unfortunately there was
incoming front!
Doesn't be you!
To explore this in more detail, to go much deeper into the physics of it, that is beyond the scope of our So the Big Bang is the very beginning, in the past. What about the future? What about our most certain event? What does analytic idealism tell us about that?
That's not good.
The first-person perspective of that. Now, there's
incoming!
one of the main social psychological reasons why materialism has taken such a fundamental hold in our culture since the late 19th century. It's because it did away with the greatest fear throughout humanity of our people. Because the fear of what we do in Christian language, how we do it.
I'm not your fucking target!
Has been used by governmental power structures worldwide to control civilization, control society. It's the single most dominant in the history of humanity. And materialism did away with it because the result is
Look out!
because there will be no subject. Someone said once, where death is and that's a material aspect or a material. Unfortunately, under analytical idealism, the force subjectivity removes because your force it's what exists. Where is it going? Life and death to it. Life and death are events in force subjectivity, not the beginning and end of force subjectivity. So the force subjectivity in you, that thing that remains when you are in your sensory deprivation between the music, that thing that remains through the reassociation process. That's called that. So there will be some and the greatest fear of humankind is that. The bad news. Here this. We go through a reassociative process. Cars and buildings.
Get all you got! Take it! Eyes on the target!
Not only the we were revolted. And the moment we wake up, our dream avatar dies. He's dead. He's gone. But nobody goes around mourning the death of the dream avatar again. Because you realize that you were dead, but it was not. In other words, you were the super. Your dream avatar was between you and dream, not what you are. And the same applies here. You can expose them up in the hierarchy of nature.
Oh, look! You're making a mess!
We are our reaction will be any different than it is when we and we have to look at it. Together to reach the great. And that is meaning. Because although materialism got rid of the greatest fear of humankind, also got rid of the meaning. Because subjectivity is an epic phenomenon of material that you must great cost, great suffering to life. Eventually, we will all be born and they will be that's the thing. You get rid of the fear of death. Real analytical is on the other hand. The content of your dissociative all the insights, all the experience because of
Got it.
unspeakable substance
Get me up.
intrinsic elements. Broader,
Yep.
cognitive context and made available to the mind of nature. The mind is large. And ultimately, all of it there is a meaning. All of it is remains in the fabric of nature. Not only that, it remains broad.
You've got nowhere to go! Got it!
What your traumas are, how to reintegrate them. You can learn all that from the dreams, even or particularly after you wake up. As a matter of fact, you can't do that during the dream. But after you wake up, you can reintegrate the memories of a lifetime of dreams. And these
Okay, ready?
happening at the level of the universe.
Perfect timing.
This is a very reasonable, coherent hypothesis. And it flows very naturally. So fear is bad, but
Fire in the hole!
so what is the meaning of mental weakness? It's experience.
Eyes on target!
What you learn from experience. Because we are metacognitive, we are
Incoming
able
smoke!
to ask deeper questions. A non-metacognitive animal just drives through life, always in the moment, always reacting to the environment, but not asking big
Enemy
questions.
spotted!
What is going on? What is going on? It sounds so dynamic. So profound. What is this? What am I doing here? What is this? What is the meaning of this? What is strange to this?
Enemy mark!
An organism outside the state of oh, it's incredibly weird. What is it? What's going on? Is there a reason? Is there a goal to do this? What's the relationship between me and the rest of nature? These are the big questions, and we are the big questions. Cognitive individuals. And these are cognitions.
Keep them coming!
Only was the use metacognition. Because metacognition
Enemy mark!
beyond the evolution of life. It's a higher level mental function that doesn't use by the evolution of life. Without it, without life, so this takes only through our eyes can the mind of man take account of itself in an explicit way. And us, the larger, the bigger,
Incoming smoke!
and get the answers when we are no longer dissociated. The intuition of the world, cultures and civilizations.
We've got some flat left in a ship. Goddamn target!
Makes more and more despicable acts.
Enemy contact!
Not us. Take the reins and cut a life. there is a seed of truth hidden in the That is the way of the dissociation. So when you die, whatever insights you've accumulated about the bigger questions are released into the cognitive complex, into the very fabric of it.
Come on! This
There
hope
is
is
a
Carbine!
sense in which sacrifice is not really to be given. People in the country come out of they are not arbitrary.
Want some of this?
Usually there is a foundation
Oh, that's great.
another example, the same one is the figure of the research.
Look out!
Black clothes creature with the hood carrying their weapons. What is when you use it for the benefit of the sound, there are cores
Okay, time for learning.
Why we are here. The moral responsibility we carry, but we only truly let the other ties of nature. It is a tremendous
Contact!
teacher not even remotely centralizing the planet.
Let's do this!
So making my life and this is sobering. Morally, when I was a young adult working at CERN I did it. Not only because it was very remote back then, but because I always had this advice in my mind that it's not they are the best because it's done in the correct structure with the correct supervision. They are absolutely safe, and they emulate that so well experientially and physically. So the Rallyx only reduce a high dose of psychedelic trip in that sense.
Drag out!
And from an experiential perspective, anybody who has a high dose of psychedelic trip and daily ego distribution knows that it can be very difficult. You go there, and something that you witness happening.
Out of the way!
And you experience after that, it's no longer frightful. I cannot speak of some ground, but the experience is frightful. Even when you know, as we do in self-defense, that it is temporary and reversible, and will be reversed, even then it's very frightful. But when you're undergoing that, also knowing that it's not reversible, it's probably more frightful. So yes, I'm afraid of that, but it's a price I pay with a smile in my face, because what I get with it is my life is meaningful, intrinsically meaningful. It doesn't matter what happens, it's intrinsically meaningful. I no longer struggle with the meaning of existence. I no longer struggle with the fact that I suffer. I do suffer, but I'm not saying, oh, all this suffering is for nothing. Why am I going through this? No, that's gone. I no longer have meta-suffering. I suffer like everybody a lot, but no meta-suffering, no self-imposed suffering associated with questions of meaning and sense all of that, all of those doubts, it's gone for me. I live in a world that is rich and envelops me in the warm hug of meaning and sense. And I rather live like this with the fear of death than live an unexamined life of platitudes without fear of death. Now, our world views are like our operating system to go through life. A change in a world view changes everything, changes every aspect of life. It has a bearing everywhere. So a transition from materialism to idealism has a bearing on everything, every aspect of life. So for example, a topic I already touched upon, the meaning of life. We live in a society in which there is an epidemic of depression, an epidemic of anxiety associated with the inability people have to discern meaning in the movements of life, particularly the sufferings that are intrinsic to life. That changes. That changes completely under analytic idealism. We are no longer
You're more than soldiers today.
By superficial and ultimately untenable narratives that have to do with external success. We tend to think today that the meaning of life is associated with material phenomena that are outside our individual mind. We fail. Particularly when we think we're about to succeed, because when you're chasing ghosts, it's the catching of the ghost, and you run through the ghost, and you realize there's nothing there. That is the moment when you lose. It's the moment when you communities of souls that being the reason why so that whole thing, that whole dynamics would change.
Let's give
Instead of collecting pairs of shoes, we set out instead of seeing suffering point to you see suffering as a means to an end. The thing that you force you to confront the good pleasure. And the goal as a human being, as a mind, pure will just eventually be made available to you. Life becomes intrinsically meaningful, whatever happens to you, whether you are a success or a failure. Go by me.
What happens next?
Is the success.
Target my mark!
As opposed to the success and the boss and the election. That we cannot explicitly access through introspection. The range of metacognition experiences that you have, but you don't know that anymore. The image of all those is all that. Therefore, physical health ultimately is
Rolling right!
and that doesn't
Fire in the hole!
Even though the body is already on the dashboard, we can do something via the dashboard. So
Eyes on touch!
the dashboard still, you're resting, transporting your interfaces, bringing your outputs, as you say, and that you have
Mine now!
experimenting the life, but maybe the
Brilliant! That's what I thought.
that in addition to the We understand that the body is what the mind is giving the deeper sense for the rest of the mind looks like. What it needs us to understand is that two is very physical health. Today we get confused by the placebo phenomenon. We know placebo happens. It's a very big problem for the pharmaceutical. The law requires a drug to be more effective than placebo in order to be approved. The placebo, you know, is getting more and more effective. So it's becoming more and more difficult for drugs to be approved because they should work just as well. And instead of doing all this we start leveraging the mechanism explicitly. We may engineer around the placebo, which other puffing smoke from his cigarette with bird feathers dancing around. What he's doing is convincing your mind that something is going on first and it will get better afterwards. And if he succeeds in convincing that that's what's going to happen, then something is changing in that mind. And therefore something is changing in the mind, because the body is the image of the deeply internalized mind.
Incoming smoke!
Being obsessed about the economic impact of the world.
There you go!
Scientific ideas means that we will actively leverage engineering without putting artificial constraints on the are impossible or impossible a priori, while we have plenty of empirical we know that hypnotherapy
What's the matter? Hostile! Next time, just keep walking. You're not even challenged.
For us, metaphysical prejudice that are not based on physical
It's off, Steve. Get there. Contact.
Internalizes analytic idealism. In other words, after one not only conceptualizes but moves through each lens, it's definitely a function of it. If we are not connected, then we are no longer social and our civilization collapses.
Got a small head. Why is it in the way?
In other words, to have empathy. At the same time,
Throwing smoke!
I have to teach myself to have a room of the mind where you give yourself moral right for a little while.
Target my mark!
That you are dysfunctional because of empathy also.
Keep them coming!
Internalizing analytic ideas, because you have to really learn how to deal with people.
Always use that.
You need the human empathy in the palace of your mind, otherwise you lose your human. It's the most valuable thing you can do. If you're not happy at all, you're no longer So you need to visit that room regularly to feed the plants inside, so you preserve your humanity, but you need to learn how to manage it as well. I could go on and on. The implications are myriad. They are everywhere.
Oh, good. More senseless slaughter.
Now, what are the alternatives? Right? I think we can take it as a fact that materialism doesn't work. It's internally contradictory, it's empirically there are other options. I can mention three. I'll speak quickly about two of them and more extensively about the first one is dualism. How the religions of the world have the world
Enemy spotted!
There is the material
Out of the way!
different kind of stuff, and the two interact somehow.
That one's planted!
That leads to more problems.
Okay, ready?
One of the most interactive, fundamentally different kinds one enters the domain of the other, but if they are fundamentally distinct, how can they enter each other's domain? If they do, then they are not fundamentally distinct, and you're back to the original.
Let's do this!
Our original is not that. It's not a much discussed alternative philosophy today. It might be probably the most skeptical view of
Mercy is weakness! Get off! And you do!
I exist only so far as you are watching. There is nothing I would like to do. I don't have my own conscious perspective in the world different from yours. I exist only I exist only so far as what you need.
I'm fucked now.
And nothing else. Nobody else. The entire world, the whole is your personal dream.
Yep,
And
this will
nothing
do.
there is nothing beyond what you do. No other people beyond what you experience. That's solipsism. There's no record once said solipsism is contradicted even by the people who mean to believe. In other words, it's impossible to believe. Because whoever believes solipsism means doing the thing in a debate.
Not afraid of a girl, are you?
Is that the people who are the figures that you want in your religion. So they I agree with Russell that nobody believes truly in solipsism. Even the people who claim they do believe as if they didn't. And such solipsists. I also think, although it's the most skeptical word, it is not the most reasonable. We have some experience that only makes sense for religion. So we could have self-generated stories and what we need. For instance, when I was a kid, I had a much older cousin girl who was madly in love with her partner. And she had some dreams from my so why I have generated that behavior out of my imagination before I understood that he could have said, well, we just projected it. So that if I projected it, I projected something that I only understood later when I found out myself. Now I understand what behaving that way. How could I have generated thought into part of my own imagination before the most reasonable explanation of the fact is that because in two like of her own before I knew what it was. So I think we can start solipsism on the basis that nobody truly believes it and that it's not.
Time to kick some ass!
Third and last alternative, which is combination of 10 cycles. Now, let me first say that there are many different theories that go under the some of them indistinguishable from idealism. Certain versions of panpsychism that are also called cosmocyclism, but certain cosmocyclisms are virtually indistinguishable from idealism. But what most people understand is what some perspectives is called duplicate micro,
Enemy spotted!
and the idea of Maestros really exists. There are
Let's do this!
such as mass, size, and so forth. They also have qualitative properties. There is something that is like to be on the Lancia.
Hey, big one! Open your eyes!
As a seed of consciousness. To be an electron means that you experience something, even if incredibly simple. But it is fundamentally conscious. Therefore, you don't need to explain how consciousness is created out of it.
Good fine!
Matter is everything conscious from the get-go. Fundamentally, mass is an intrinsic so strong, so momentum.
That's four! Incoming shot! Hey!
Somehow arises from the combination, the coming together of the tiny little subjectivity of the coherence of the factors that constitute our nervous system. That's the theory. There are a number of theories that is untenable. A couple of them categorical and definitive.
Oh, that's just bloody great!
Let's start from the more arguable one. There is the subject combination problem. And that has to do with the fact that how is it that different subatomic particles with separate subjectivity can come together and their subjectivities can combine to form a higher level of subjectivity? This combination of subjectivities is not explicable. And there are arguments in the literature that not only is it not articulated, it can be articulated. Fundamentally incoherent idea.
Right, cock off! Stop!
I happen to agree that the combination problem is insoluble and the psychism is therefore untenable.
Have this!
But there are, yes, better things. The best of all, another thing to take into account is the following. It's an entity formed out of parts. So our brain
Target my mark!
Come back here!
parts of the brain.
Enemy spotted!
Is correlated with the mind, then our consciousness itself could be the coming together of parts, of smaller subjectivity. There is a fundamental error in this notion, and it happens in the very beginning, which is the notion that we are made of parts. A car is made of parts. Why? Because the structure and function of the car are defined in the engineers design the car. The parts are brought together and welded together in a manufacturing line. The structure and function are defined in the inside out. Materials fully mean that the structure functions that their roles and positions in the organism are defined.
Yeah, nice.
Therefore, an entity that has grown cannot be
My damn
as
thing.
parts, at least not in the same sense that a car can be said.
Hostile.
The only two parts as parts that were brought together in the outside being, the person or the entity that has grown has no parts that have been brought together from the outside in. They have grown from the inside out. There is a very important sense in which neurons are not parts of the organism. Neurons are the reflection of a self-similar inner complexification of the organism. An organism creates inner structure, not the coming together of parts. Immediately after fertilization, the fertilization by the mother and is housed on the side of the uterus.
That's mine.
3 days later, the little ball, which is one cell,
Have this.
would be, you have 8 cells
Our bad.
inside. But if you have the same diameter, and if you look at the photo comparison of the two, the 3-day-old embryo is still the original zygote. It's still fertilized. Just the one has
Rolling spike.
the 8 cells are not part of the embryo. They are created through cell similarity. In other words, cell division.
Hostile.
Because it's self-similar. Each part looks like the original cell. Each part looks like the cell. Structure of you could say that a fully grown human being is still the original zygote. It's still the original after fertilization. It's the same entity, just
Oh,
with more
that's
inner
just bloody
structure,
great.
more inner differentiation, more inner complexification. A human being is not made of parts for exactly the same reason.
Where
The
the
zygote's
fuck do
not
you think
made
you're
of parts.
going? I'm not done with this.
To the cells through the parts. As I got through the single cell. A human being is still the zygote, and the multiple cells are just the inner differentiation of the original entity. We are the exact same original entity. We are the simple by using parts together. We are the original entity just created so neurons are not parts of the entity. Neurons are what the inner structure of this whole entity we call human being looks like. They are the discernible groups of pixels of the image that the body is. The only part of the human being that is not considered to be parts are merely nominal. They are arbitrary parts. They are groupings of pixels of the image that neurons. Neurons are not parts. Is to think of a human being as a car manufacturing an assembly line. That's the fundamental definition of the difference.
Fuck now.
Between assembly and growth. So that's motivation for panpsychism is invalid. Let's get to the definitive argument that just ends the story. Panpsychists assume that the fundamental building is of a part. They have three spatial boundaries. They are living things. They are marbles. Like glass marbles. Just very, very, very tiny. They have their own the combinations of the marbles in my head produce my consciousness. The combinations of marbles in your head produce your consciousness because my marbles are spatially bound inside my head, your marbles are spatially bound inside your head. And that's That's why I can't read your thoughts. Or, presumably, you can't read my thoughts. That's why we have different minds. Because the marbles are different, and they look at different points of space. And they have different boundaries. That's what the marbles are. You know, and we have known that arguably since the late 1930s.
I love it when they do that.
Eyes on target.
So it's like part, we call it part only for two reasons. One, historically, before the 1930s, the late 1930s, we used of Alani's subatomic particles as little marbles. And the other reason is metaphorical. It's a convenience metaphor. The particles are not things.
Eyes on target.
In exactly the same way that a ripple is not a thing distinct from the lake where it is. Imagine a lake, and there is a ripple going across.
Get back. We're not done yet.
So there is the ripple. It has a precise spatial language. It has physical characteristics. It has a height, has a breadth, has a speed, direction.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yet you cannot reach into the lake and grab the ripple and pull it out of the lake because the ripple is the behavior of the lake. There is nothing to the ripple. You just nominally give a name to a pattern of behavior to make it easier. But ripples are not things, even though they are
Hostile.
there is nothing to the ripple but to the lake. Now, it is quantum field theory, which is the most successful theory in the history of tells us that subatomic particles are ripples, not quantum field. There is nothing to the subatomic particles but it's just nothing to the ripple. The subatomic particle is a thing of quantum field. Is a behavior of the field. And it has physical characteristics and even has spatial locations. Already field exists. The field has no spatial boundaries. All quantum fields span the entire we are not localized the but again, ripples are not things. So if the inside that produce consciousness as a fundamental property of the environment of nature is same, then it has to be different because there are no particles. And if it is different from the same food, the same quantity of food, my mind and your mind, my brain and your brain, everybody else is the food. Therefore, can cyclists that I can read your thoughts and you can't read mine. Then cyclists have a 100-year to try to preserve the novel notion of a subatomic particle, especially to Bohmian mechanics, which is interpretation developed in the early 50s. And in the United States, French physicists, they broke it. Because it preserves the marble-like nature of particles. Well, a few years ago, we had experimentally Bohmian mechanics, that's one part of it. And the other part of it is, even if we haven't experimentally repeated it, we cannot reconcile it with special relativity. And that makes it untenable, because we know special relativity holds. You see, there are great many things, that can only be if we understand particles to be ripples and citations. Otherwise, we cannot account for them. We know a couple of examples. We know that in the perfect vacuum, or quantum structure, particles can come out of existence randomly. If particles were marbles, this would amount to nothing. This would amount to nothing. particles are fluids, those fluids get excited like the surface of a lake, and ripples suddenly disappear. There's nothing magical about it because there are no particles, there is only the fluid. The particles are just ripples. Such quantum fluctuations are not magical. And we use quantum fluctuations to everything in the cosmos. Because after the Big Bang, it was quantum fluctuations that created a great distribution of energy around the cosmos, which gravity created stars, planets, moons, galaxies, galaxy clusters, and more. Without quantum fluctuations, and that cycles are still
Never get tired of that!
defies quantum fluctuations. Quantum fluctuations would not be possible under a panpsychistic view of particles. Or another example, and I'm going to relate this much better. Decay into other particles, and these other particles don't exist in the original particles. They were not components of the original particles. So particles B and C, B and C will not have a particle A. It's magical, right? Yet we know, well, it's not magical if you will understand the particle A to be a ripple. And a ripple may be creating other different ripples that will not have the original ripple. There's nothing magical about it. Unless you think the particle is magic. It's bizarre. They are not. It is completely impossible because it is inconsistent with I have something to say about this. It's a topic very close to me. I also have a doctorate in computer engineering and computer science. And I did work with AI, even when I was at Sun. And back in the day, the theory of the 90s was largely the same as today. The only difference is that we have faster computers today. But the theory is still largely the same. Neuronal networks, back propagation, nonlinear transfer functions, all that good stuff. And already in the 90s, we could build data acquisition systems for physics experiments at CERN that could identify physics data just as good as a physicist, but much faster. Could make a decision every 25 nanoseconds.